Welcome to Crafty Little Beach. This is Julie. Today I have a Dollar Tree DIY for you.
I promised you guys we would be doing the beehive wreath today too. I have done this one before with burlap, the burlap with flowers on it and rope on the front. Now for this one, I kind of wanted it to not be the full beehive. So I'm just going to use my pliers and pull off the bottom to kind of make it look like a beehive with like a flatter bottom than just the longer beehive. Just personal preference, but I kind of like how it turned out. I just wanted something a little different than the one that I made before. Now, I found some more great fabric at Dollar Tree today. This is fuzzy too, but it is velour. They had this velour in all different colors. I got a whole bunch. Even for like Christmas, I got like reds and greens and blues. I loved it. And then I also picked up one of the yellow aprons just because I needed some yellow fabric for the back of this. What I want to do is kind of make like a little pillow that I can stuff that I'll make like that velour fabric kind of come up in between each layer of the beehive and make it look more 3D. So I just lay my beehive on top of the apron and I just cut this down to size. Now, I thought fabric would be the best for the back of the pillow. I did find that the stuffing kind of went out that direction as well. So if I had this to do again, I might replace this fabric here with cardboard because it would be something that you could still cut, but it wouldn't be quite as giving as the fabric with the stuffing that I kind of wanted to go the other direction. But I was able to make it work. So I cut that out. That's going to be the back of the pillow. That looks good. And then I'm going to cut out the velour. The velour is going to be the front of the pillow and what's coming through that wreath form. And look how pretty this fabric is. I'm so glad they're carrying all these new fabric products at the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to use the apron that I cut down for reference to cut this out. I want to kind of leave a little bit of room in between because I want to be able to cut all of my Sharpie off here. I don't want any of that to be visible on the final product. So I drew it next to it, but definitely not right on it. So I can then just cut all of that off and have the front part for it. So that's what we're cutting down now. We're just going to cut down the velour to size. And it's a great color. I thought this was a really great color for a beehive. If you like, we're doing like a kid's room or something like that with like Winnie the Pooh, this would be super cute for that. Kind of reminded me of that. My son had a Winnie the Pooh themed playroom when he was little, and I had a lot of fun decorating that with Winnie the Pooh. Definitely a classic. And so just cutting all of that velour down to size. So now we have the two pieces, we can kind of build the pillow. The reason I wanted to do the pillow again is to make it look more 3D from the front so that I can actually stuff it. I want the material to come up in between those different pieces like a honeycomb shape. So I'm just going to start like a no-sew method, hot gluing it. I do actually have to end up doing some sewing on this project though. You guys know how much I hate sewing. But I couldn't think of any other way to make it work. But I'm going to glue most of it closed. I'm only going to leave open like half of the bottom for stuffing. So I'm going to leave up the bottom part right there. And Dollar Tree carries polyfill now, so that's a fun find. I'm just going to take some polyfill and I'm going to stuff it. Nothing crazy, just kind of like medium thickness. I probably could have stuffed it more, but I kind of wanted it to be flat, so I'm just kind of putting one piece in at a time, trying to make sure that no area really gets stuffed more than the other. And that looks pretty good. Now, I was concerned about how I was going to attach the wire wreath form to the velour once I got it closed up like that. I just glued it shut. And I didn't really think that I was going to be able to hot glue it in place. As you can see, once I stuffed it, kind of made it a little smaller than the wreath form, so I kind of needed to do something a little bit heavier duty. So, gotta break out one of those giant needles from the Crafter Square at Dollar Tree, and we're actually gonna have to sew because I couldn't really think of any other ways to attach it. So, if you're gonna stuff yours too, you might want to make it a little oversized, and that way you could hot glue the wreath form down onto it better. But I'm going to go ahead and attempt to sew. I'm going to do a really loose stitch all the way around and just something to kind of keep it all together. And it actually worked, even though I didn't want to sew. So this took me a little bit of time. So I'm going to put this on super, super fast speed. But basically, as you can see, I'm doing a very loose stitch all the way around. I mean, sometimes like maybe even an inch between stitches, with like the excess string just being on the back of it. So I don't really have to worry about any of that being visible. And I am just sewing the pillow to the wreath form. This worked out pretty well. That way it stays tight to the edges. Then I can kind of go in and I'm going to cover the wires on the front. So I'll be able to cover up like any stitching or anything like that. So again, just going all the way around. I do want it to be puffy though, like in the middle. And so once I get the edges sewed on, I also sew the middle bars too to kind of make it give it that puffy appearance. It's going to kind of pull the wreath form down in between each one of the segments. So it wasn't too thick of a pillow, so it was pretty easy to do that. And again, I'm just doing a very loose stitch, like every inch, and just leaving the excess string there on the back. And I'm going to do that all the way up. I don't really care too much what the back of it looks like because you're not going to be able to see it. But I was glad that I did like the pillow fluffy shape on it because usually these are super flat and I think that they should look bumpy like that. That was my goal. Now for the wire we're going to cover up with Dollar Tree rope. I'm actually going to use two different kinds. I'm going to use this larger brown rope from the Dollar Tree to go all the way around the edges of the beehive. That way it can kind of cover up that large seam that I have. I thought the skinnier rope was not going to be large enough. So I'm going to start right here on the bottom of our beehive. And I'm just going to hot glue this one section at a time and glue that all the way around. Then when I'm going to go in and do the middle sections too, but that one I'm going to do with the Dollar Tree thinner brown rope, because I don't want to take away too much from that velour beehive. It turned out so cute. So my goal here is to cover the wire and also cover the stitching. So I'm kind of going just to the edge because I really have to cover a lot of stitching here. And that white thread, I don't want you to be able to see that. And that is the outer edges. And again, we're going to do the inner part of it too. I want to decorate it as well, kind of make it look like a beehive. Again, I'm using this one for a wall hanging, not necessarily like an outdoor wreath. I don't know how well this beautiful velour would do outside unless you had kind of a well-protected porch. So on these, I kind of have to do individual pieces. So each row I'm going to have to cut down to size. But I'm glad that I did the thinner rope on this because I don't really need much more. All I have to do is cover up the wire, and the stitching isn't super obvious on this one because I just stitched the wire down through the pillow. And we're going to do the same thing here with the other three pieces until it is framed out. Now I wanted to have like a hole for the front of it, a hole for the beehive for the bees to go in and out. And I was trying to decide if I should add like black fabric, but I actually ended up doing it with that same rope that we just used. I'm just going to start here and form a circle with it, hot gluing that to the velour in this little second section. And then I can just spiral that along. I do have to kind of hot glue it all down to make sure it stays in place. until I get to the center, cutting it down to size and gluing that point down. Now, I did notice that it kind of wanted to stick up, especially since that area was stuffed. So I did take that same needle and thread, kind of tack that down as well, sewing that in so it kind of goes, back kind of like a button sewed in to the pillow. And then I was trying to think of what I could use to make a bee for a beehive this big. I mean, it is pretty large, and I'm actually going to use a toy from the Dollar Tree. So while I have the rope out, I am going to go ahead and make a simple hanger for a beehive. I'm just going to cut a piece of the rope down to make a simple loop like that I can put on the top. I do want this to hang like straight up and down, especially since I made like the bottom of it flat by removing part of the wreath form. And I just attached that to that yellow fabric on the back that used to be an apron. And that should be a plenty good hanger. Now, this is the toy that I was talking about from Dollar Tree. There's their toy bees. And I thought this would be a really good scale for this since it's such a large beehive. But I want to give it a little makeover. I'm not too crazy with the way they paint these. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my heat gun to try to remove these wings. They're really kind of in there because I don't want to get any paint on those. So I want to go ahead and get those out of the way. I have painted these like really realistic before. This is going to be kind of an easier version. I like the yellow and black bee tail here with the stripes, so I don't want to change anything there. So I just tape that off with some painter's tape. I'm not too worried about the underside of this one because you're not going to be able to see it, so I'm only going to paint the top, but I definitely wanted to protect that section. And then I kind of wanted to paint everything black, like black legs, black antenna. I know bees have black heads. So we're going to use just black spray paint. You could also use like black acrylic. The great thing about these is they have like a texture on them. And so you can kind of really get a realistic look if you wanted that. I just kind of wanted a quick, easy one. So I just sprayed it down with some of that black spray paint, and that does say it works on plastic, so it should work well on this little plastic toy. It didn't want to dry too quickly, though. I don't know if it was the spray paint or maybe I used a lot of it. But I'm going to go ahead and remove the painter's tape from the tail. And I like the way it looks better now with all of that painted black. So just kind of cleaning up any kind of bleeding that I had there from the painter's tape. And I'm going to finish drying this bee so we can attach it to the wreath form. Can't forget to reattach the wings. I had to make sure which way they went when I took them off so I could put them back on the same way. I'm not going to glue them in place. There's kind of enough tension keeping those in. I think that that's going to make it work. And then we can attach that to our little fuzzy beehive with the velour. That's what I was trying to think of, the velour. And I'm going to kind of have it to the side of the opening, kind of like that. I think that looks good. And I'm just going to attach it to the velour with some hot glue, kind of pushing that down in there, just like that. And I think that's a really fun detail. Anytime I can add like a bee to a beehive, I'm going to love that. And then I like it. I thought it needed just a little bit something more, something that would go with like the bee theme. So I decided to add a flower. This is the Cosmos from the Dollar Tree. It is a big white flower with a yellow center. I thought this would look really cute with the colors that we have going on, and a bee definitely goes, or a flower definitely goes with the bee theme. So I just kind of hot glued that on that second section up against the rope. Nothing crazy, but I think that's the perfect final step to this little pillow beehive. I really love the velour, super fun textures, and the little toy bee looks pretty good on there as well. And as you can see, the texture on the bee, they're really kind of cool.